Okay, we are live with one of my favorite social media celebrities, I call you. Lex. Lex, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
For anybody who doesn't know what you do, I think it's like one of the most like perfect formats for I don't know, any social media, but especially like TikTok and Instagram. And the format is, well, maybe you want to explain it. Maybe you'll be better at explaining it. How does it work? How does your channel work?
I mean, the bulk of what I do is I have people request movie recommendations from me, and then I look at their letterbox, I go through their four favorites, I look at what they've seen, what they haven't seen, and then I give them personalized movie recommendations. And I mean, I do other stuff too related to movies, but that's pretty much my main thing.
Yeah, and you kind of like what I like what you do is you kind of break down like, okay, what's the common thread here? People are like, I like Possession and Lost Highway and da da da, and you're like, okay, what's the common thread here? How do you do that? What's your I mean, is do you do that really quick? Does it come off right away, or do you have to like think about what's going on here? What's going on in this person's brain?
It depends on what the four favorites are. Sometimes I'm like, oh, there's a very clear theme here. Sometimes the theme is kind of concerning, and I'm like, this person might need help. Other times it's like four totally different movies. Like they have nothing in common, but I love that because it's like okay, they appreciate all different types of genres. So then when that happens, I tend to just be like, okay, you like this movie, you might like this movie. It depends. It's a mix between one for one recommendations based on each of the movies or like a cohesive this is the theme and these are other movies that involve those themes.
Yeah, okay, there's one thing I saw this once, but I was curious like how often this happens. Somebody did, what did they do? This is clearly like a film nerd, a film obsessive. I am too, so no judging. But somebody was trying to get you, I feel like, with what was it? Werner Herzog eats his shoe four times. How often does stuff like that happen where somebody's trying to get you?
Well, that one I saw it and I was like, wait, that's actually really funny. And then I made the video about it, but the person did tell me that, like, oh, like, I'm sorry, I can actually put my real four favorites up. And I was like, okay, you can do that whenever you're ready, and I'll get to that one eventually. I just want to post this one because I thought it was funny. So I don't even think that they did it on purpose to mess with me. I think that's just what they had. And then they're like, oh, oops. But after that, I had some people try to copy it and it didn't work because the movie they picked, I don't even remember what it was. It was something I hadn't even seen. I was like, this isn't really funny anymore now.
Like Air Bud four times or something like that?
Well, I've seen Air Bud. I would have done it if it was Air
What
Bud.
would you recommend if I said my favorite movie is Air Bud? What would any good recommendations? So maybe dogs in situations they shouldn't be in.
Well, the problem is, I'm like, I need to know what the other four are. When you have just one movie, I'm like, okay, do you just like movies where like dogs play sports?
Right.
If it's other movies with animals, I'm like, okay, we could go in some different directions here. I have not seen the sequels to Air Bud, so that kind of ruins that.
Yeah, I definitely gotta watch the Air Bud sequels. There's one I wanted to ask you about some specific movies. It seems like Lost Highway comes up a lot. Maybe Lost Highway is one of your favorite movies. Can you tell us? Because it's definitely one of my favorite movies. Can you tell us maybe like people always do try to analyze David Lynch movies, and it's that's a weird one because David Lynch doesn't like talking about. People always ask him what's the meaning, like what's going on, and he doesn't answer. And I think for me it's partly because he doesn't know, maybe, but it's also because he wants to leave it open to whatever you think it's about. But what's your like why do you like Lost Highway?
I mean, Lost Highway is not even my favorite David Lynch movie. It's in my top three, which I've learned a lot of people don't agree with that. People seem to think it's one of his worst movies for some reason.
Wrong.
I think it's extremely misunderstood. I mean, like, it's literally misunderstood in the sense that nobody understands David Lynch's movies, but everything about it, I'm like, this is on par with Mulholland Drive. Like, it has a lot of the same themes. Um, like the dual role thing, having this one character and then it's like another character.
Hmm.
The sound design is incredible. I saw it when they put it back in theaters in New York. The soundtrack is amazing. It's got a scene that is hilarious that stands out to me, but also a scene that I'm like, this will give me nightmares.
Hmm.
So it's like everything you could ever want.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably one of the creepiest slash funniest scenes in a movie when the cameraman comes up to the main character. That's one of my favorite scenes in a movie ever. Where he's like, "What are you
Oh, that
talking?"
was
Yeah,
terrifying.
terrifying, but it's also funny. I love when he's like, "What are you talking about?" and he's telling him to call him. So good, so good. People are saying in the chat that they love the soundtrack. The soundtrack's great. So what are your give us your top David Lynch movies in order?
My top three in order, I don't actually have a ranked list of the rest of them, but I know for a fact my top three are Mulholland Drive, which is in my top 10 of all time. And then I could go back and forth on this one, but I will say my number two is Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, and number three is Lost Highway.
Ooh, okay. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. Fire Walk with Me, maybe. Well, no, maybe it's not that underrated because people love Twin Peaks and they're like, this is more twin. This is the movie version. You get the full David Lynch on in a movie. The full David Lynch version of Twin Peaks, maybe. Uh,
People hated it when it came out. It got booed at Cannes. It
oh,
got bad reviews.
yeah, because it's not Twin Peaks, probably. It's not
I
what you're.
think people were expecting more Dale Cooper,
Mm-hmm.
and then like they didn't get enough of him. A lot of characters. It was just very different. But I think that's part of what makes it brilliant.
Okay, somebody in the chat asks if you can give a recommendation for people who think Paris, Texas sucks. I mean, this is not really what you do. Um, I think something sucks. What can you recommend for me? Somebody who doesn't like a movie. That's a twist.
I need to know why they don't like Paris, Texas.
Yeah, exactly. Did you see that new Wim Wenders movie, the Tokyo one?
Perfect Days.
Yeah, how was that?
That was in my top 10 last year. But that one, I could understand people disliking that one. But like, there are different reasons why someone might dislike Paris, Texas. It's in my top 10 of all time. So I'm a little biased.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to know the reasons why someone dislikes it in order to figure out what I'd recommend to them.
Yeah, I know. Hey, Chatter, give us some more details. We need to get into your head a little bit more. Um, the other movie I wanted to ask you about that, I don't think I know anybody else who's seen this movie, but Belle de Jour, I think is one of the great maybe one of my top favorite. Can you tell us about that movie? Why you like that movie?
I mean, I feel like that one kind of ties in with why I love Fire Walk with Me and its depiction of a woman who, like, the psychological effects of her youth, how that plays out later in life, kind of. I know I've recommended it to people with Fire Walk with Me in their favorites before, but I mean, I'm a fan of the director, the star. I think I was going to say that's the first movie I saw from him. I'm not sure. Maybe not. But just, I'm really interested in the psychology of characters, especially women. So I just gravitate towards movies like that.
Yeah, that is a real. I feel like you get into some real psychological stuff, especially the opening. It's got one of the kind of most jarring openings for a movie too, where you're trying to. I like that in movies when it starts you off. You're trying to kind of figure out what's going on too, is fun. Um, Another one you get a lot, or I've seen more recently that you've been getting a lot, is Possession, and I feel like Possession has had like a kind of resurgence. People loving that movie recently, and I've recommended it to a bunch of people. If somebody recommends you Possession, like what does that say to you about them, or like what movies they might like if they like Possession a lot? And if anybody hasn't seen Possession, definitely worth watching. One of the, I don't know, closest to like an out of body experience I've had watching a movie, I think.
Possession is one where it really does. That's why I like doing the four favorites thing, because I've done a lot of videos for people with Possession in their four favorites. And I think there's like a kind of, there's so many different things you could love about Possession. So knowing their other favorites really helps. Like when I first started my account, I was going to do like, oh, your favorite movie is this. Here are my recommendations, and just do one movie. And then I gave people the option of tell me your favorite movie or give me your Letterbox username and I'll use your four favorites. And the four favorites thing worked out. And I was like, this is actually so much easier than just one movie.
Yeah, that's great. How, like, do you ever get any where you're just stumped, where you're like, I don't know what to recommend this person? Have you gotten any recently where you're like, I don't know what's going on, where they're maybe like so all over the place that you don't know what to recommend?
It happens a lot. Usually, my problem is they've only watched like 200, maybe even less than that.
Hmm.
So I'm like, okay, I can't tell if your letterbox isn't up to date or you just haven't seen a lot of movies. Then I'm worried I'm going to recommend movies they've already seen. And like a lot of times they'll have a movie in their four favorites that's directed by like Quentin Tarantino, but then they don't have Pulp Fiction marked as watched. I'm like, wait, this doesn't seem like, I feel like your letterbox isn't up to date, and I just want people to have their letterbox up to date so that I
Hmm.
don't like, because I've had it where I've had a whole list of recommendations and then I talked to the person and it turned out they saw like most of them. Like, why'd you ask me for recommendations then if your letterbox isn't up to date? So that's really the thing that stumps me the most, more
Hmm.
so than what the actual movies are.
Are you like obsessed with movie? Like, are you watching more movies now to try to keep up so you can, give people more like deeper cut recommendations? Because that's one thing, like watching your channel, I'm like, wow, she does have like a serious movie knowledge. Like, how do you keep up?
These videos have actually cut into my movie watching time because I'm like, okay, I feel this pressure to make these videos, but it does take a lot of time. And that's time I would spend watching movies. And then some people have movies I haven't seen yet and they're four favorites. So then I have to watch those.
Hmm.
And yeah, I don't, the thing is I'm not trying to recommend obscure movies. Like, I feel like a lot of people think that because I'll recommend something like, oh, I've never even heard of that. But I'm not going out of my way to recommend stuff no one's ever heard of.
Right.
I'm just trying to pick the movie that I think this person will like.
Okay, there are people now trying to get live reads here. Ru- Here's this person's favorites: Rubber, Hot Fuzz, I, Robot, and Too Fast, Too Furious.
I kind of feel like they're kidding,
I
but I
feel
also don't want to say that
they're
because I'm like,
trolling. They're trolling.
there's nothing wrong with those being your
Nothing
four
wrong.
favorites. It just kind of feels
We
like
see
it's
you,
a
we
joke.
validate you. It's totally fine. But that one's all over the place. Cause Rubber is like a satirical movie almost, and then well, Hot Fuzz, Rubber, both kind of satirical, both kind of making fun of genres and movies, and then and then Too Fast, Too Furious.
Well, I don't remember if I've seen iRobot, so technically this is one I wouldn't do yet. Because if I
Mm,
haven't seen all four, I'm like, nope, I have to watch all four before I can do it.
yeah. I get this a lot too, where people are saying that Jackie Brown is their favorite Tarantino movie. Have you noticed that? I feel like that's a thing that's coming back. Because that one, when it came out, I remember Tarantino, I remember reading that Tarantino was like, this is a massive failure. I failed. And now people kind of like, there's a resurgence where people like it now.
I think it's like there's a newfound appreciation for it. If it's someone's favorite, part of me is like, are you just saying that to be different? But I'm also
Mm,
like, I respect it because it's not a bad movie and it doesn't get the love it deserves, but I also am like, really? I don't believe that it's someone's favorite. Just
I don't totally believe it, but I think it's like what he always wanted to do with a movie where he wanted to make. Because I remember reading like interviews with him where he was really obsessed with these books, like Charles Williford books that were basically like, what's the less glamorous side of small time criminals, And I think he was always trying to do that. I think he did it a little bit better with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Brad Pitt's character, where you're like, okay, it's kind of like just you're hanging out with a criminal. And I think that's what he always was trying to do, and Jackie Brown was an attempt at that. So, in a way, maybe it's like people trying to get into his head a little bit. But uh, what else are people saying? But I don't know I know that this is putting you on the spot, but who are your favorite directors, maybe of all time or like right now?
do you mean like ones that could do ones who are dead still count? Because
They
I feel
still
like it's
count.
two different
No,
categories.
dead or alive. Let's do dead or alive.
Okay, so Charlie Chaplin's my number one.
Ooh.
I have a really hard time actually picking and ranking them. I really love Kubrick, Kurosawa, obviously David Lynch, Cronenberg. Um, like I
And
feel like I would just list a bunch of them and it
yeah,
means nothing because I'm just naming good directors. It's kind of hard to actually pick like these are my core favorites.
And I think I've been seeing posts from you on about this about the substance, which I saw recently. That's like I don't know. I wanted to get your take on the substance. It's definitely like a Cronenberg-esque movie. What were your feelings on the substance?
It's my favorite movie of the year. I loved it. I'm seeing some backlash now, but I saw it in theaters 3 times before it actually came out in theaters.
Mm.
So I managed to avoid any of like if you anyone who hasn't seen the movie yet, I feel like they might have a more negative reaction because people were kind of hyping it up a lot and now there are people being like, it's not that good. Calm down, guys.
I think it's pretty good. It definitely does the Cronenberg thing pretty well. And I like too that there's like an absurd quality to her movies where like it definitely she like lays into that toward the end. Like when they're calling the character a freak and all that. I'm like, okay, this is becoming even more of a dream. I like that. I like that. Um People are saying Soderbergh in the chat. You got any Soderbergh takes?
I like him. Like, what's my favorite movie from him? That's the thing. I don't know my answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
I know I loved Side Effects more than everyone I talked to, and I still think that movie's good. I don't know why no one loves it that much,
Side Effects
but
was a bit of a forgotten, like one of his many forgotten movies. He's got a lot of those where it's just like nobody sees it kind of thing, which is kind of
yeah, but
crazy for such a big director.
well, he does make a lot of movies though.
Oh
It is
yeah.
that's the thing. Like as soon as I heard the name, I'm like, wait. Suddenly trying to remember every movie he's ever directed, and there's just so many of them.
Yeah, he really like pumps out the movies. I remember there's a movie, did you see Bubble?
I have not seen that one.
That's a weird movie. If anybody can find Bubble, he does. He makes so many movies that a lot of them get forgotten. Bubble was basically a movie where he went to some small town and they came up with like kind of a loose plot and they just found like local people in this small town to be the actors in the movie, which is kind of an interesting experiment. And a lot of it is that where it's just like here's like an experiment in movie making and I'll just put it out, which I think is kind of cool, and Bubble is definitely one of those. But totally forgotten. Somebody says, "Yeah, Bubble is awesome." Okay, cool. One of the few people who watched that movie. Um, can you give it, I wanted to get from you maybe like some of your like recent favorite, you know, uh, uh, submissions that you've gotten from people? Are there anywhere maybe you've had like fun trying to put together recommendations, or like it was a challenge? Can you give us any like recent good ones?
Actually, the last four favorites video I did might be my favorite four favorites,
Ooh.
but that one was really challenging because usually it's challenging because the person's seen everything I want to recommend, and I'm like, oh no, what am I going to recommend this person? This one was challenging because I'm like, wait, there's so many masterpieces this person hasn't seen yet. Now I'm like, how do I narrow it down to a decent amount for a video? Because I usually make a list that's really long and then narrow it down for the video. And I think that one got a little long because I was like, I can't narrow it down. It's too hard.
Yeah, what were they? What were the person's favorites?
That one was, well, now I'm like, I shouldn't have said it because that person who doesn't like Paris, Texas is here.
Ooh, they're gonna get real mad.
I'm so sorry. But their four favorites are, I'm just double checking. All
Oh,
That Jazz, Paris, Texas, Before Sunrise, and Do the Right Thing.
oof. Wow, all over the place. And what are some that you recommended? Because it's like, yeah, I wouldn't know how to put that one together.
Um, I mean, that one, I think my top choice for them ended up being If Beale Street Could Talk.
Okay, haven't seen it. What's the through line there?
Because it's got, I don't know if I connected it to All That Jazz. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
wait, no, I did. It takes place in New York in the 70s, like All That Jazz. My connection to Paris, Texas was like one of those things where I'm like, probably shouldn't say that, but it's technically true. And I compared the fact that both movies have characters talking to each other through glass, which in If Beale Street Could Talk, it's because one of them is in prison. So weird comparison, but it is accurate. And then I was like, okay, and then there's romance like Before Sunrise, and then it deals with racism like Do the Right Thing.
Man, we're getting a lot of troll recommendations here. Lady Ballers, Red Dawn, Scary Movie 3, and The Notebook. Do you get do,
Well,
where would you go with that?
I
'Cause
haven't seen some of those.
some of them are just pure trolling.
But those
Definitely.
people might like the one I did before the one I just described.
Okay.
Because that one was Evil Dead 2, When Evil Lurks, Freddy Got Fingered, and Ichi the Killer.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh man, I'm glad you brought up two of those. Okay, I finally just watched Ichi the Killer and Audition. I avoided those movies when I was younger because there was such a like a scare vibe around them. Like if you watch these, you'll die, basically. Like they're so creepy and violent. Do you have what's your take on Takashi Miike movies in general?
He's hit or miss for me. I thought I was going to love Ichi the Killer. Like for the longest time, anytime I would try to look up movies that I like, whatever I would Google to try and find movies that I might like, it would always come up. And then I, for some reason, just hadn't seen it. And then I finally watched it, and I was like, I don't love it. I liked Audition though, and The Happiness of the Katakuris. I really liked that one.
Yeah, what like Ichi the Killer, the thing I think I like the most about Ichi the Killer is that it's so 90s. Like there's something so not I mean the wardrobe obviously, but like the sort of like fisheye bubble lens stuff and all that. It's just like such an instant like time portal to the 90s for me. But obviously like almost unwatchably violent and and grotesque at the same time.
Yeah, I need to care more about the story for in order to be okay with the violence. Like I'm never like, "Oh, this movie's too violent. I don't like it." I just care more about the story than any of that stuff.
Yeah, Audition I feel like definitely had like a more fleshed out story. Itchy the Killer was almost more like music video which to me is like kind of 90s too, but yeah, definitely. Okay, the other one, Freddy Got Fingered. Man, that movie was such a big deal when it came out when I was younger. Do you like it? And what's your feeling on Freddy Got Fingered?
I'm guessing you haven't watched that many of my videos
Hmm.
because it's come up quite a bit.
Whoa, okay. I gotta go through again.
Well, I know back in April I did a video about my four favorites, but it was April Fool's Day, so it was just Freddy Got Fingered four times, which was fun because like afterward I was like, okay, so now that I did my four favorites, because I treated it like I was being serious, and then I was like, well, here's what I would recommend to myself based on these four, but obviously it's hard to do that because how can I recommend a movie if I haven't seen yet? But I really think I would like, and then I said like April Fools, which is the name of a movie that I haven't seen. And yet I still have people comment things like, watch more movies. I'm like, in what universe did you think that that was accurate? I named the same movie four times.
They just want to give you a hard time. That's a thing on social media. They like to give people a hard time. But yeah, I kind of really want. I haven't watched Freddy Got Fingered in a really long time. But what's his Rip Torn is in it, and he's one of my favorite actors. Do you? It's so funny to have like such a like, what would we call it, like real actor in a movie like that too. I think that's like part of what I love about it.
Yeah. I did quite a few videos about that movie actually. I think when it was on the Criterion channel, I did a couple videos about that
Hmm.
because I was like, what are the odds? And then earlier this month, I went to the mobile Criterion closet and I brought two copies of Freddy Got Fingered with me. So
I
everyone's
did see
like,
that. I did see that, and you put it in.
yeah, I was like, because I didn't love the idea of the mobile Criterion closet. I was like, like I had issues with it. And I was like, if I'm gonna do this, this is what I'm gonna do. Like I probably should have just talked about my favorite movies like a normal person, but I was like, nah, I'm just gonna bring two copies of Freddy Got Fingered into the Criterion closet.
Now people are talking about The Pest. Have you seen The Pest?
No?
That's definitely not that people. I think people are trying to compare it to Freddy Got Fingered, but totally different thing. That would be The Pest would be up there with like really like just terrible top terrible movies. What do you have any favorite like really bad movies?
I never know how to answer this because it feels like the same as the questions like guilty pleasures
Yeah.
or movies you love that everyone else hates. And I find it so hard to answer those because I'm just like, if I think it's good, I don't really care if everyone else thinks it's bad. Sometimes, like, I don't find out till years later that everyone hates a movie that I liked, but there isn't really anything that comes to mind off the top of my head. Like, I really love trashy 90s erotic thrillers,
Oh
but
yeah.
I actually think they're good movies.
That
So
was that was big probably because it I always mix up Fatal Attraction and Basic Instinct. Which one is the Sharon Stone one? That I mean that movie was
Basic Instinct.
Basic Instinct probably like sparked that because I think that was a good movie. People
I
were
love that movie.
great movie. I finally rewatched it because I think I saw it when I was a kid. I saw it way too young because there was so much buzz about it. I was like, I somehow managed to see it and I rewatched it. I was like, this is actually like a really great movie.
Some people don't think it's good though, but I love it.
Definitely good. Those people are crazy. Somebody asked about After Hours. You like After Hours? I think I love it because it's sort of like I don't know. It's like Scorsese doing like Talking Heads or something, some kind of like 80s New York, but it's still kind of dark at the same time. What's your take on After Hours?
I love it. It's funny because the first time I saw it, I didn't like it, and now it's my favorite film from him.
Whoa, favorite Scorsese After Hours, controversial take. I think I saw.
It's really good.
It is really good. A lot of good kind of cameos too. I think I saw you. I was talking to somebody about this movie. This is another almost like lost movie, especially to younger people. But the Doom Generation, that movie was huge when I was like in high school. Like we loved that movie. It's definitely got like a little bit of a Tarantino vibe, but like more interesting, more like satirical in a way. What do you think about Doom Generation? Another like 90s capsule too. To me, Itchy the Killer, the 90s vibe. What's your feelings about Doom Generation?
I like pretty much all of Greg Araki's films. I
Me
really like
too.
his
He's great.
style.
Mhm.
I feel like because the way you started off, I didn't expect you to say the Doom Generation, and
Mhm.
it's because I thought that movie was so popular because I remember people on Tumblr being obsessed with it.
Really? Oh man, okay, maybe I missed that. I like that though. That's good. Yeah, so Doom Generation. Also, I don't know if you've ever seen any of this guy's movies. What's John Moritzagu? Have you ever watched any of his movies? I feel like
I,
if you like George Araki, you'll like him. He did a movie called Terminal USA. Have you ever seen that?
I don't think so.
Oh my God, amazing. But yeah, I want to rewatch the George Araki movies. Well, what else? If you had to recommend, maybe just generally, what are these people saying? I wanted to give some specifics from the chat, but what are some like maybe underrated movies you've been thinking about lately that you might recommend, just in general?
Well, the thing is that if there are movies I would recommend in general, usually they're not underrated because they're movies I'm like, everyone would like this. That's the
Okay.
thing. I don't care so much about whether or not I think a movie is good. I'm thinking more about the person I'm recommending the movie to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's why I do the letterbox thing so I can try and get a sense for the person's taste. I'm not always right, but I try really hard. If it's just me recommending movies like Into the Void, like I don't know who's on the receiving end of this recommendation. So it's got to be a movie that I'm like, everyone would like this movie, which technically is impossible. There's not one movie that everyone unanimously is in agreement on. There's always going to be at least one hater. But I mean, if I'm going to pick movies that I think everyone would like, for some reason, I always think of 12 Angry Men. Like,
Mm. Okay. Wow, going to
and
going to the classics.
yeah, that's the thing. Like, the movies I would recommend to everyone aren't going to be the more recent movies. They're going to be more classics.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I probably wouldn't do Citizen Kane because I know people tend to be like, "Oh, everyone says it's the best movie of all time," and then they get disappointed. So I wouldn't do that one. But I do think that's a very good movie, though.
Totally, but the bar is so high that people are like, Citizen Kane's one too, where maybe it's you need to know the backstory a little bit to really appreciate it. Um, Somebody asked, I thought this was interesting. Maybe we could get your take on this. Somebody wants to know, they asked, what's your feelings about Harmony Korine and Gummo specifically?
I don't really have like I like Harmony Korine. His movies are kind of hit or miss for me.
Me
I
too,
didn't
yeah.
love Gummo as much as I thought I would. I remember, I'm pretty sure I rented it from Blockbuster. It doesn't seem like a movie that would be at Blockbuster, but I'm pretty sure I rented it from Blockbuster. And I was like, I'm going to love this just based on what I was seeing on the internet. I was like, I know I'm going to love this movie. And I was just like, all right, he's eating spaghetti in the bathtub. I don't know. I don't dislike it. I don't love it. I'm like, it's just there. I
It's
have no,
Ooh,
I don't really have anything.
you're getting a lot of pushback in the chat from this. People are saying I like Gummo. Uh,
Yeah, no, it's not. I think there are people who really love it,
yeah.
and I don't really love it. And they're also it's one of those movies everyone loves or hates, and I'm just kind of in the middle on. So it's
Yeah.
not really an interesting answer, but that's where I'm at with that one.
Somebody asked, we have to answer this one because it's in the form of a super chat. What is her favorite Robert Altman film? For me, I might say maybe The Player, but what's your favorite Altman?
Ooh, that is such a good question. It used to be The Player. Can I like pull up his filmography just because I know I'm gonna say one and then I'm gonna change my mind? I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, I could. It's too
Do
hard.
your research. I'll read some more super chats in the meantime.
I don't know. I just wanted to have it in front of me. I I do kind of want to still say The Player, but I'm like top three because I just also really love Three Women and Images.
Oh yeah, Images is great.
Like maybe I think if I watched those three back to back, maybe I would have a new favorite. That's the thing. I'm like, it's one of those three.
Somebody asked, "What is the movie called where Ernest goes to jail?" Any take on the Ernest movies? Feel like we might be somewhat similar in age, so the Ernest movies have to have come on your radar at some point. Why aren't they in the
I
Criterion collection yet? That's a crime.
I haven't seen a single one of
Oh
those.
my God. Unbelievable. Okay, maybe you can do an Ernest series. An Ernest series.
Are they movies I need to see?
You know what? I would be really interested to see what you think of the Ernest movies. From what I remember, they all kind of. I don't know if that character holds up that well, but they all kind of follow a similar line where, like, everybody doubts this guy Ernest. And basically, Ernest is just like a southerner who wears, like, all denim, and he's kind of a goofball, but they all follow this format where everybody doubts him, and then he proves himself at the end to be like a really great guy. That's pretty much it. But I would love to see you do some Ernest, Ernest takes. Uh, oh, there was a good one. Neil Breen. Do you have any Neil Breen thoughts?
He makes movies.
I, there's definitely a vibe in the Neil Breen. It's almost like you're making the movie with him or something.
I understood the comparisons people made between his work and Megalopolis. I'll say
Oh, did you watch it? Did you watch Megalopolis?
I did.
And what do you think?
I was so ready to be one of the defenders of this movie. Like everyone was like, "Oh, it's gonna suck." As soon as I heard the reactions out of Cannes, I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be Coppola's Southland Tales. It's gonna be so good. I'm so ready." I don't like even if people say it sucks, it just makes me more excited for it. And I was bored and I barely laughed. But I appreciate the movie because I've watched that clip of Adam Driver saying, "So go back to the club," so many times.
Oh man, that's a shame. What do you think happened? I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but this seems like unanimous. Like, was it just too big? Did he just get like crushed under the weight of this? What
Oh,
happened?
there are other people who love the movie, so it's not like everyone hates it. It is very divisive. I feel like the people who love it, because I want to understand, I want it to be one of those people. I think it's more kind of like the audacity to make something like this, to be like, this is what I want to make. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it happen. And not really caring what anyone thinks, kind of. Like, he fully committed to what he wanted to do, and I respect that. I just didn't enjoy it.
um, Along the same lines, all the negative reaction to the Joker sequel. Did you watch that?
I did.
What'd you think?
Well, I wasn't a fan of the first Joker, but kind of like Megalopolis, where the more negative reviews I saw, the more I was like, okay, I'm very interested. Like, I
Me
kept
too.
seeing
Yeah.
people who loved the first movie act like the sequel ruined their life, and I was like, "Yes, now I wanna see it," because I didn't like the first movie, so maybe I might like this one.
Hmm.
And I was so bored, I kept checking my watch and it wasn't ending.
It's weird because, like, I kind of concluded that it could have been a good movie. Um, like the kind of theory behind it I like, but then the actual execution of the movie just like didn't work. And I've been trying to figure it out ever since. Maybe it was just the way it was shot or the way it was acted or something, but yeah, it's
It's
kind
the
of a
screenplay.
the screenplay too. I mean, like, and I like the idea of bringing back a musical. I thought was a cool idea when people first started talking about it, but it just didn't click. Like, it just didn't click. And yeah, it's probably just, I don't know. Maybe it didn't move enough or something. I don't know. I haven't been able to figure it out.
It didn't commit to the musical part, like, I was like, "You could cut out half of these songs. You could cut out all of the songs. It'd
Mm-hmm.
be the same movie pretty much, but shorter," which actually might be better. And the song choices, when I heard it was gonna be like a jukebox musical, I was like, "Oh, okay, like, this feels very inspired." And then I saw the movie and I was like, "This feels very uninspired." Like, it feels like he wasn't really trying. I don't really know why. And then the song choices. Why was When the Saints Go Marching in the movie so many times?
Yeah, I know. That kind of was a thing. Like, it didn't have like momentum. Like, you're doing the same thing over and over again. It kind of you kind of start to check out. Um, People are asking about Lars von Trier. Do you have a favorite Lars von Trier?
I always said I was going to make a shirt that says Lars von Trier ruined my life because one of his movies totally did ruin my life.
Which
But
one?
I like his movies.
Yeah.
The one I'm talking about is Antichrist
Mm. Yeah,
because
probably
the
ruined a lot of
only
people's
thing
lives.
I can't handle in a movie, like, I can handle all the violence, disturbing stuff, whatever. I draw the line at, like, literally seeing some form of genital mutilation. I don't wanna see that because I think it actually I like the story, and when I first started watching it, I was like, "Oh, like, I'm gonna love this movie." And then it went there. And I was like, "Oh, I can't unsee that."
Yeah, I go into every movie like I hope something like that happens. That's like it'll make my top 10 list immediately. What's your do you have a favorite Lars von Trier movie?
Probably Nymphomaniac.
Yeah.
But I think his best movie is probably Dancer in the Dark.
Oh my God. Classic. Bjork. You think Bjork's a good actor?
Yeah, but also I like kind of feel bad even talking about it because I'm like, I know she did not have a good experience
Right.
working with him.
Right. I remember that coming out. Yeah. Well, it seems like he might be a difficult guy to deal with, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, let's see what people are saying in the chat about this. Now they're just talking about genital mutilation. Great, great.
I'm sorry.
Do you is she into documentaries? If so, what's one she really likes or favorites?
Oh, I do like documentaries. I am weird about documentaries though, where I the subject matter is more important to me than the style. If it's really well done, then the subject matter doesn't matter. It could be about potatoes, and I'll be like, yeah, coolest documentary ever. But usually, what draws me to a documentary is the subject matter. And the one I would say is my favorite is one where I'm like, wait, does this count? Because I've seen people be like, concert films don't count as documentaries, but
I
I'm
already
like,
know what you're gonna say. I know what you're gonna say already.
you
But yeah,
do
it counts. It counts. Go ahead. Go ahead.
stop making
Stop making
sense.
sense. Yeah. It is. I would put that in the documentary category for sure. Cause it
Like
all
that one, I don't feel like it counts as a concert film the way other concert films do. Like that one feels like a documentary.
totally. Totally. Yeah, because I also feel like they're documenting a time too. Like it does put you back in that time when the Talking Heads were really like popping off, and like how a concert like that works. I was always like the whole like percussion section and all that it's always like, wow, like you're seeing like a big production happen. You know what I mean? And it kind of like just it goes off perfectly. So I think you're fair to put in the documentary category. Have you seen any Adam Curtis movies?
I'm like trying to think off the top of my head, what has he done?
He does these kind of like they're kind of like political documentaries, but they're really more like, I don't know, kind of like they're like a mix between just like art, like weird art movies where he does like these voiceovers. He's a British guy. But the interesting thing about him, I think he has access to the BBC archive. So it's just like a lot of weird and like just hard to find documentary footage. You should check them out. They're good. Somebody's asking best mockumentary. That's a tough one. I
Well,
can't even think of a mockumentary right now.
that's one where if I don't Google a list and see them all in front of me, I know I'm gonna say an answer and then regret that I didn't say the right answer because I just was like trying to think of mockumentaries really quickly.
Yeah.
Um, oh, like there
Maybe.
are a lot of good mockumentaries.
Yeah, I guess people are saying Spinal Tap, which is kind of the go-to. There's a movie called Man Bites Dog. Do you remember that movie?
I just recommended that one in the Freddy Got Fingered video.
Yeah, that's a kind of a real like
And I talked about Ghost Watch in a video recently. That's also a mockumentary.
Ghost Watch. Okay, I'm putting it on the list. I'm putting it on the
You should
list.
watch that for Halloween. It's a perfect Halloween movie.
Okay, before we go, why don't you give some of your favorite Halloween movies?
Oh, well, that's the thing. It's like, do I pick horror movies, movies set around Halloween, thrillers that aren't horror movies but terrify me because I find certain movies more scary than horror movies? Like, Ghost Watch is my go to for Halloween. Another one of my go tos for Halloween is Ms. 45, which is not a horror movie,
You
but it
love you
takes place.
love Miss 45. I see that coming up in your recommendations a lot. Abel Ferrara is like he's I feel like he's coming back, and like that's a great one.
Yeah.
Tell us, give us a little Miss 45. It's like sell us for anybody who hasn't seen it.
I'm gonna
I
haunt
mean,
you.
it's a rape and revenge movie, which usually puts people off, but that's like one of my go to examples for why, when people make comments about how a movie directed by a man isn't feminist, like a lot of people want to bash a movie right away and be like, it's directed by a man. This is not really feminist, even though everyone claims it is. Like, that's my go-to example of how men can make some of the most feminist films of all time because I think that is a feminist masterpiece, whether it was intentional or not. And I watched the movie for the first time and was loving it, but there was one thing about it that I did not love, that I was like, okay, if I rated movies, I would dock some points for this. And then the very last scene remedies my one complaint, and I was like, perfect movie.
All right, Miss 45. If you haven't seen it, that is a great movie. Um, well, I mean, do you want to plug your channel? Like, your it seems like you have the biggest following on TikTok. Is that right?
I mean, I wouldn't call any of my followings very big, but
They're
I
big
have
to me.
more followers on TikTok, but the people on Instagram feels like they watch my stuff more and interact more. So I don't know.
All right.
But my username's the same across all the platforms, and it's Movie Rex by Lex.
Movie Rex by Lex. It's one of my. It's very like addictive too. It's like I want to see. I want to see like what people are watching, and there's definitely like a bunch of people who send you these, movies that they like seem like. I mean, there's a mix, but a lot of them do seem like people who are obsessed with movies. Because a lot of them, when I see like Possession coming up a bunch, I'm like, oh, these are people who really love movies, I think.
I don't know. Sometimes they're just really into horror and gore. Some like I've had like the weirdest mix of people, which is probably the best part because when it's all the same movies, it gets boring. But it's kind of been all over the place.
That's great. Anybody who hasn't watched Lex's channel, go check it out. It's like you're gonna get addicted to it. But yeah, thanks for talking to me. This was really fun, and it's cool to meet somebody who I've been kind of like watching a bunch of their stuff lately. So yeah, you're also doing like a bunch of substance related Halloween stuff. Is that correct?
I mean, hopefully the one I posted today is the last one because I'm like, people are gonna start unfollowing me at this point.
Yeah, don't get unfollowed. Don't get unfollowed. Well, Lex, it was nice to meet you. Thanks for doing this.
It's nice meeting you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, and we are